Number 1. The Tent in the Backyard. Me and my best friend Jack used to camp out in my backyard all the time. It was pretty cool. And my house had a pretty huge backyard too. My dad had a really cool property. There were lots of trees and a pond. It was nice. We could set up our tent out by the pond. We were actually pretty far away from the house. We did this as much as we could during the summer and even into the fall. This happened on a cool fall night. The leaves had just begun changing color and falling from the trees. Jack and I knew that our chances to spend time out in the tent were becoming numbered. We had to get as many sleepouts in as we could before the weather changed and it was too cold. Being boys about 13 years old, we did what was expected. We talked about girls for a while. We ate crappy food. We teased and made fun of each other. And when it got really late into the night, we told each other scary stories. We were still at an age where we hadn't become desensitized to stuff like that. We were also at the age that no matter how much we scared each other, we would never admit we were scared. So we kept telling more and more stories late into the night. At some point, we must have gotten tired, and we drifted off to sleep. I remember waking up once and thinking I saw my father outside the tent. There was a shadow through the thin material. It was a big shadow and looked a lot like my dad. I was too sleepy-headed to really think about it, though. I simply told him that we were fine. I figured he'd leave and go back into the house. I fell back asleep almost immediately. I'm not sure how much longer it was before I felt Jack moving around in his sleeping bag. I woke up and looked at him through my tired eyes. "Gotta pee," he simply said, and I laid back down. I heard him unzip the tent, leave, and zip it back up. I fell back asleep. Now, this is where it got weird. Even though I was sleeping, I was sort of on the edge of being awake. I'm not sure how else to describe it. It was like I couldn't completely let myself fall asleep, knowing that Jack would probably wake me up when he came back to the tent. I wasn't sure how much time had passed either, as I kept dozing off a little, and then waking back up. Only thing that I was even slightly sure about was that Jack had not at any point come back to the tent. After a while I began to worry. I had to force myself to shake off the sleepiness and get back awake. I didn't think Jack would have gone to the house without telling me. I got out of the tent and began looking for him. When I didn't see him, I began calling for him. When I neither saw nor heard anything, I got worried, and I went and found my dad. He grabbed his flashlight and his gun, told my mom to call the police, and for me to stay put. He was going to go looking for Jack. The police came, and my father returned to the house. He didn't find Jack. The police organized a search to look for him. I was so terrified. It seemed like he had just disappeared. I didn't know what to do, but I remembered that shadow outside the tent that I thought was my father. My father told me he hadn't come out. They didn't find him that night. They didn't find him the next day. They organized a bigger search party, recruiting citizens from the town and combed the area. Finally, after 2 days, they found Jack. He was laying under a bridge in one of those large metal culverts. He was unconscious and badly beaten. He was taken to the hospital, and he didn't wake up until a week later. And when he did, he told us the most horrifying story. While he was looking for a spot to pee, someone grabbed him from behind and covered his mouth. Having his nose and mouth covered, he was worried he was going to die, and lost consciousness. He was dragged through the woods on the ground, sometimes coming in and out of consciousness. He was taken under that small bridge and beaten, and then left there. He never saw the guy who did it. But the police arrested a man who eventually confessed to the beating. He was sentenced to over 30 years in prison and is still there. Jack is doing okay, and we're still friends. He asked me to write this story because he's never been able to himself. Number 2. Asleep in the car. I was down on my luck at one point and had to live in my car. It wasn't too terrible at first. I mean, the first few nights were really uncomfortable. I had to scrunch myself into the back seat. My legs and arms were cramped. But once I had slept in it for a few nights, I got really used to it. I had this string of really weird experiences, though. For a while, I was sleeping in the parking lot of a local apartment complex. I got woke up right when an armed drug deal was going on right by my door. I quickly found a new place to sleep. That didn't work either, as someone informed a police officer and I was made to leave. I began wondering if there was anywhere I could go where I would be able to get some rest. Finally, I remembered that there was this old abandoned hospital that had a huge parking lot. A lot of the kids used to go there when I was younger and check it out. It was also a big drinking area. There didn't seem to ever be a caretaker there. The people made up stories that some old psycho patient was still living inside the building. I think that kept a lot of people away from it. It actually kept me away from it for a while too. However, I needed to get some damn sleep, so I finally made the drive. It was wonderful. I pulled up to the side of the building. It was nice and dark. There was absolutely no other cars there. There was no caretaker. And no one had seen me drive up to the place that I knew of. I have to admit, it was a bit intimidating and a little scary, but I fell asleep very fast. Although I slept good for the most part, I did wake up several times when I heard some noises. I thought I heard something tapping on the side of the car, but when I peeked out, no one was there. I figured it must have been an animal or something. I thought I felt the car shake at one point too, but it was likely just the wind, I told myself. After these small annoyances, I was able to just fall asleep and sleep through the night. When I woke up in the morning, I pulled the cover off over my head. I froze as I saw, written on the windshield and what looked like some rag kind of marking, "You look dead when you sleep. Sleep here again, and you'll be dead." I very quickly jumped into the front seat of the car. I looked around but didn't see anybody around. I tried to rinse the words off my windshield, but the cleaner fluid and wipers wouldn't take it off. I decided to drive it away anyway. I was on my nerves the entire ride out. Well, I guess that's not the scariest story ever, but it was frightening, thinking someone was out there, riding on my car while I slept, and watching me, thinking I looked like I was dead. Number 3. The Girl's Room. I do not tell this story because I think it is fun. I know that people listen to these sorts of stories, try and scare themselves. But even so, when they listen to these, they also get freaked and disgusted by the things that happen. I tell you this story not to entertain, but first, because I think you, KilerOrangeCat, are a good storyteller, and I enjoy listening to you. And also, because stories like this need to be told. Children should always be protected. Growing up, my sister and I shared a room. We had 2 brothers, who also shared a room. Our bedrooms were on the 2nd story, while our parents slept on the 1st story. I was 10 years old when this happened. The day was just like any other day. The night was just like any other night. At no point did any of us have any idea of what awaited us that night. My sister and I went to bed at 8 p.m. As usual, we talked for a little bit after the lights were out. Soon, though, we had drifted off to sleep. I was woken by a noise. It sounded like a door opening or closing. We had bifold closet doors, The ones with the shutters? I could have sworn that door was bent open, and we never left it that way, but I wasn't too worried about it. For a moment, my mind entertained the thought that something was in the closet, but even though I was very young, I wasn't scared when my sister was in the room with me. I fell back asleep. Much later in the night, I woke up again because I heard a noise. This time I looked over at the closet, and the door was wide open. Before I could make a noise, though, I felt a hand go over my mouth. A voice whispered in my ear, "Don't scream. Don't make a noise and I won't hurt you. But if you say anything, or make any noise, I will hurt you. Do you understand?" I nodded. The man took his hand away from my mouth. I wanted to scream, but I believed him, that he would have hurt me if I did. Instead, I just watched him as he walked over to the side of the room and sat in the desk chair. "Go back to sleep," he ordered me. I closed my eyes. I knew there was no chance I was going to go back to sleep, but I guessed I could at least pretend, so I did. Occasionally, I would open my eyes just a tiny bit to see if the man was doing anything, but he never did. Strangely, he just sat in that chair at the desk doing nothing. After a while, I stopped opening my eyes. I just lay in bed, not sleeping but pretending like I was. I have no idea what this guy was up to. It was only when he must have thought that I was asleep that he got up. But then I heard him open my bedroom door, and he walked out of it and closed the door. I heard his footsteps walking in the hallway. I heard him on the stairs, and then I heard a very loud bang that was the unmistakable sound of a gunshot. My sister and I immediately woke up. We jumped out of the bed and ran out the door, scared as to what may have just happened. What we saw was the man laying on one of the stairs, holding his chest. My father was standing at the bottom step, holding his gun. A rusty sickle was laying at the stairs, right next to the man. The man didn't survive. To this day, I have no way to explain his weird actions. He could have killed my sister and I easily, but he didn't. He didn't really do anything to us. We assumed he was going to kill my father or mother since he was going downstairs, but the police assumed he was just a robber who got caught by me. They thought that was why he stayed in the room. He had to make sure I was asleep before he moved on to rob the house. But there's really nothing scarier than waking up in your room and seeing someone there. It's terrifying. Thank God my father was there to protect us that night. Hey all, KilerOrangeCat here. First thing, I want to thank everyone so far who has contributed to or shared the link to the GoFundMe campaign I have set up for my buddy Jerry. In 1 week, we have raised $420 of the $1,500 goal. I hate to keep bringing it up, because I know you all are here to hear scary stories, but if you could either donate or share the link on social media, it will be very appreciated. It's included in the description. Thank you. Now, if you like this video, please let me know by hitting the like button. If you're not already subscribed to KilerOrangeCat, please consider hitting the button below, or using the icon of Ichigo that will appear at the end of this closing. Feel free to leave a comment to let me know what you think of the video, and share it with someone you think may enjoy it. You can always follow Ichigo and myself on Facebook and Twitter. If you have a story you'd like narrated on KilerOrangeCat, please email it to the address included in the description. Coming up next, I'm going to have a non-theme video with stories from subscribers. I've gotten a few stories that don't fit into a theme, so I still want to share them. I'll try to get that up tomorrow. And in the meantime, don't forget to make sure to check in your closet and check under your bed, because you never know where a KilerOrangeCat might be hiding. Good night.